What's up, everyone, and welcome back to HBCU Game Day, and welcome to Week 9 of HBCU football Friday night. We have 5 great matchups to preview for you today. We have some SWAC games, we have some MEAC games, we have myself, Symone Stanley, and the Wilton Jackson. Wilton, thank you so much for the time tonight.
Yes, it's good to be back, Symone. It's another week of college football. I mean, like, it's the end of October. This is when real football becomes very, very important.
Absolutely, and we got 5 very important matchups to get into. So let's not wait, let's not delay. Let's go ahead and get into it. All season long, fans have been waiting on this one. The Magic City Classic, one of the biggest matchups in HBCU football every year. And this time, it's Alabama State and Alabama A&M coming into this game, both knotted up at 3-3, looking to get past 500. Wilton, when you're looking at this game, what are you seeing?
When I look at this game, I'm looking for, if I'm Alabama State, you have to be prepared to stop Xavier Langford's dual threat ability. When I talk about Xavier Langford, I'm talking about Alabama A&M's quarterback. He's most dangerous when he's able to connect with his receivers down the field, as well as when he's able to use his leg on design run plays or when he's able to extend plays. But if you're Alabama State, you want to be prepared to contain him, especially after he registered 3 of his 4 touchdowns in a win against Bethune-Cookman last week on the ground. Also, if you're Alabama State, the Hornets' offensive line must win the battle up front. You're talking about, it's no secret that Alabama State isn't going to pass the ball that much. Therefore, ASU's offensive line must maintain their assignments up front to allow the running backs to be dynamic and create situations where they'll be able to hit the holes up the middle and also run along the edges on the outside, and they have the running backs to do that. And then you're talking about, if you're Alabama State, keeping the Bulldogs out of the red zone. This is the Alabama A&M team that leads the SWAC in the red zone in touchdowns with 21, and 12 of those scores have came on the ground. But luckily for Alabama State, they're #1 in red zone defense. They're also #1 in scoring total and rush defense, while coming in #2 at pass on their pass defense. If you're Alabama A&M, it's simple, very simple. You have to stop the run. Their running backs, Jamari Holtzclaw, Daquan Kenty, they're their featured backs for the Hornets. If you stop them, you're pretty much going to maintain Alabama State's source of offense. If you're Alabama A&M, you want to make sure you get Langford's. You want to maintain Langford's ability to be a dual threat quarterback. ASU has a stout defense and will be looking to essentially make Langford one-dimensional in this game. So if you're the Bulldogs O-line, you must be prepared to give Langford some time to make plays down the field in the passing game. Also, if you're Alabama A&M, don't sleep on the fact that they have obviously good quality running backs in Donovan Eaglin and Ryan Morrow. Of giving space in small holes, they've shown that they can be able to hit those holes and make explosive plays in the offense.
All right, I guess I should have said this at the beginning of the show for the viewers, but I did just have mouth surgery. So it's giving a little Kanye through the wire, but we gonna get to the show regardless. But yeah, the Magic City Classic, it's gonna be on, it's gonna be popping. We can't wait for that one. Of course, bragging rights on the line. And this is a big matchup in Magic City Classic history. So we're gonna keep our eyes on that. But then we have another SWAC game to get into, so let's go ahead and get into it. This time it's the Southern Jags taking on FAMU in Tallahassee, Florida. Southern is coming in 4-3. FAMU coming into this game 3-3. FAMU coming off a loss last week against their newish rival. I feel like we should call it a rival the way they go at it on Twitter in Jackson State University. So FAMU is going to want to come in this week and bounce back. But what is it going to take?
I think, Symone, I'm gonna start with Southern first because they're on the hot streak and they're obviously winning games, going to brag. I think for Southern to maintain that winning streak, they're gonna have to basically keep it simple and run the football. FAMU has not shown that they can stop the run, and last week we saw a good case of that with Jackson State. So if you're Southern, your running game with Kobe Dillon, Kendrick Rhymes, C.J. Russell, you want to get that going. I mean, it's a simple situation of if it's broke, don't break it. Also, if you're Southern, you want to contain Daniel Richardson's mobility in and out of the pocket. How many times, Symone, have we said on this show that Daniel Richardson, obviously he's dangerous when he's in the pocket because he can make those passes down the field, but he becomes even more dangerous when he's on the run and extending plays. And I think if you're Southern, you bring in pressure up front, but if you bring that pressure up front, you want to also make sure that your other defenders are playing their specific assignments to make sure that he doesn't get off on the perimeter and potentially extend those plays for the Rattlers. Also, if you're Southern. Noah Biden, you want to be able to manage the game. You're talking about a Southern team that's going into a very raucous environment at Bragg Memorial, and they're coming off of a loss. So you're talking about a FAMU team that's going to be looking to force turnovers. They're going to be looking to put Noah Biden in some tense situations. So with them playing that game, with Southern playing that game at Bragg Memorial Stadium, look for the Rattlers to get after him very early. And I think if you're FAMU, you want to be able to limit the turnovers. 2 key turnovers they had against Jackson State hurt FAMU in the latter stretch of that game. So I think this week, obviously, there's going to be a concerted effort to make sure that they don't turn the ball over this week, especially in critical moments. I think also if you're FAMU, you must win the battle in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Southern will be looking to get pressure on Richardson. The Rattlers' offensive line must be ready to counter that. You're talking about a FAMU team that has not been able to run the ball effectively like they were a year ago. But I'll say this, I don't necessarily expect them to get 100 yards on the ground or even more than 100 yards, but I think a little bit more than they've typically gotten this season could really, really do wonders and work well for Richardson in the Rattlers' passing attack. And I think also for FAMU, staying consistent in the red zone defense and maintaining drives, particularly on first down and third downs. FAMU sits third in its number of first downs they earn each game and on third down conversions. So I think for the best way for FAMU to keep Southern's run-heavy offense basically on the sideline is making sure they maintain their own drives, and that way you're not seeing their rushing attack on the field.
FAMU, would you say this is a must-win game for FAMU?
I do. I do think it's a must-win game. I think, although obviously Southern is in the SWAC West, I think if you're FAMU, you're still trying to stay in contention and competing for SWAC, the SWAC East division with hopes of potentially still getting to the SWAC championship. They would also obviously need some help now that they've lost to Jackson State. They would actually need Jackson State to lose at least 2 games for FAMU to take over of the SWAC East and potentially get to the SWAC championship game.
Ooh, they're going to need Jackson State to lose 2 games, and that's going to be tough because Jackson State is playing well right now, and their opponent not playing the best football. Let's go ahead and get into our next matchup. Is Jackson State University headed down to Florida to take on Bethune-Cookman. Bethune-Cookman 1-6. Jackson State 5-2. Jackson State just took down the Florida HBCU last week at FAMU. Now they're taking on another Florida opponent in Bethune-Cookman. Now, Wilton, every week when we talk, you always say, oh, Bethune-Cookman's record doesn't indicate just how good they are, but then they keep losing. So, What's up? What's up?
Well, they have been losing, but they got a win last week.
Because they play a team that...
Because they played a team, like Mississippi Valley. I mean, but they still won. A win is a win, right, Symone?
A win is a win, but somebody had to win that game. It was 2 losing teams. Somebody had to win.
And it doesn't make it any better that this is Bethune-Cookman's homecoming. And as a person who went to Jackson State's press conference this week, T.C. Taylor definitely felt a certain type of way, not in a major way, but he definitely felt a certain type of way that Jackson State was Bethune-Cookman's homecoming.
Now, why would you do that to yourself? Why would you do that to your fans? Well, again, when the season started out, we thought Bethune was going to be popping G. You know what I'm saying? Looking like they in school for chiropractic. But once the season played out,
it's not looking too good. It's not looking hot at all.
So what is it going to take for Bethune to defend Florida? Shoot, let's start there. Defend Florida, because like I said, Jackson State they could do a sweep of the whole state.
They could, and honestly, Symone, it's a very tall task for Bethune-Cookman. There's no lie there, and I think if they want to have the best chance in winning this game, it's gonna start with stopping Jackson State's rushing attack. Whether it's Irv Mulligan, Travis Terrell, Amari Matthews, Desmond Moultrie, and a slew of other running backs that they have, any chance of beating Jackson State, you're going to have to stop their rushing attack. I think also, if you're Bethune-Cookman, taking advantage of special teams. One player that has not been as dynamic as I thought he was going to continue to be after those first 2 kick returns he had in the beginning of the year, and Darnell Diaz for Bethune-Cookman. If you get an opportunity to have a big play in special teams, that could actually help in terms of getting points. And then also, if you're Bethune-Cookman, limiting the turnovers. You talk about the quickest way. Just look back at FAMU last week. They gave up 2 turnovers, and Jackson State capitalize on those opportunities. The quickest way to give Jackson State an easier win in this game is turning the ball over if you're Bethune-Cookman. Now, if you're Jackson State, some people look at this game as a trap game. Like you just mentioned, Jackson State just came off of a win against FAMU, which was, to some would say, that was the SWAC East Super Bowl before, the rest of the season continues. But if you're Jackson State, you want to still come out and start fast with a balanced attack. Obviously, you want to get the running game going, and you definitely want to be able to do that in conjunction with having Jacoby Morgan make smart decisions with the ball and putting the ball in his wide receiver's hands as early as possible. Also, if you're Jackson State, be prepared to see Cameron Ransom and then also their backup quarterback in Luke Sprague. Sprague was actually the quarterback that had the most production in that win for Bethune-Cookman against Mississippi Valley last week. He had a rushing touchdown and he had a passing touchdown, and he definitely provided that spark for the Wildcats offense that they needed to get that win. And I think the biggest thing for Jackson State more than anything is because they're playing what we would consider more of a lower opponent in the SWAC East this week, is locking in for 4 quarters and not becoming complacent in the fourth quarter. We've seen time and time again this season in earlier games that Jackson State has failed to score points offensively in the fourth quarter, and the defense has gone to sleep. Hint, hint, the Alabama A&M game. So you definitely don't want to get complacent at any point in this game and give Bethune-Cookman any chance of confidence to feel like they can beat you.
You lost me at trap game. They ain't trapping nobody. Come on, it's week 9, Wilton. We gotta stop. We gotta stop capping. It's week 9. It's time. They ain't trapping nobody.
Hey, but I'm just saying, if Jackson State goes down to Daytona Beach and they lose this game, what's gonna be the narrative?
I'll apologize on here, but I haven't even put my foot down on much on this show. But I will put my foot down and say they ain't trapping nothing on Saturday, okay? You've tried to fool me week by week with the Wildcats. Every week you try to fool me, and I will not be fooled for the 7th time. All right, let's go ahead and pivot to the MEAC. So we got 2 great matchups. In the MEAC, we have Morgan State at 3-4 taking on North Carolina Central, who is hot right now at 5-2. What are you seeing in this one?
I think if you're Morgan State, Symone, it really just comes down to, and I've said this on the show several times, Morgan State we know their defense is elite. It's very much elite. And I think in any game, specifically coming up in MEAC play as it gets underway even more, it's going to be what can Morgan State do offensively. So if you're Morgan State, you're going to also, specifically because your defense is good, you're going to get a strong test on defense in terms of stopping the Eagles' ground game and their passing game from Walker Harris. In the first couple of weeks, we kind of thought, like, what would North Carolina Central's offense look like without Davius Richard? 7 weeks into the season, essentially Trey Oliver's squad looks pretty solid, and Walker Harris is looking pretty good. He currently sits second in the MEAC in passing yards this season and first in passing touchdowns. And also, when you combine that with the production of Jamari Taylor, I mean, North Carolina Central essentially looks like they're not missing a step. But they will get a test. The Bears for Morgan State will definitely get tested and being able to stop them. And I think also if you're Morgan State, you must be able to control the line of scrimmage to run the football and also create opportunities for their quarterback in Deuce Taylor. Morgan State, not typically a team that throws the ball a lot. They've had a different quarterback in Taylor who hasn't been playing bad, not necessarily the touchdowns to go with the production that he's had in terms of completions. But if it was ever a game that you still needed some consistency and some type of balance to go along with a rushing attack that includes Miles Marie, Jason Collins, and J.J. Davis, this might be the game that you have to do that. And I think if you're North Carolina Central, take care of the ball at all times. This is a Morgan State defense that is very stingy, both in the run and in the pass. So they're going to be looking to create turnovers for the Eagles. And then, again, North Carolina Central, Walker Harris, to that very first point I just mentioned, take care of the ball, make sure that you're getting the ball to your wide receivers, not doing too much. When the play is dead, the play is dead. And then also, if you're North Carolina Central, taking advantage of good field position on special teams. North Carolina Central leads the MEAC, when it comes to special teams with the best kickoff return average with 28.6 yards per play. And then just with the level of success that they've had on offense, this should be an interesting matchup to watch. Definitely one to keep your eye on.
And we have another MEAC matchup before we get out of here. Last but certainly not least, we have Delaware State University at 1-6 at South Carolina State 4-2. Wilton, What is it about this matchup that intrigues you?
You know, Symone, do you remember in the beginning of the season when everybody was watching Delaware State in their Hawaii game? It was a late night game, and they were literally like, you know, competing closely with Hawaii. And I just thought to myself, like, okay, this is Delaware State we're talking about. Is this really for real? Is this going to continue to go? And now, as we see, obviously, you know, 1-6 coming to this game. So, you know, for Delaware State to get a win against a really strong and thriving South Carolina State team, they're going to have to stop the biggest threat or the biggest asset for the Bulldogs, which is Eric Phoenix, their quarterback. You know, you're talking about a quarterback who sits atop the MEAC in passing yards per game. He also has some dynamic wide receivers in Caden High and Justin Smith-Brown who can really get after it and take the top off the defense. So I think if you're Delaware State, you have to be able to slow him down. Also, don't forget the fact of their rushing attack. They have a two-punch rushing attack with DeAndre Duhart and Casey Adams that's been dynamic, and it really has been very beneficial for Eric Phoenix to be successful in their offense. And I think more so than anything, you want to make sure, if you're Delaware State, get in Jaden Sutton. You're talking about the leading rusher in the MEAC in yards per game and all-purpose yards in the MEAC. Get him going early as possible. Again, can be a tough task going up against the South Carolina defense that is elite, but if you want a chance to win this game, if you're Delaware State, this is what you have to do. And it's simple for South Carolina State. You want to be able to contain Jaden Sutton on the ground. Don't allow their quarterback and Marquis Adams to get in a rhythm. And more so than anything, make sure to maintain that balance on offense when it comes to the passing game from Phoenix and the run game with Duhart and Adams.
All right, now to the last segment of HBCU Friday Night. We have Wilton's picks. Wilton, what was your record last week?
The record last week, I was undefeated.
Oh,
and you know, you got on me about the fact for picking Tennessee State over Howard for Howard's
No. I didn't say it was a good logical pick. I said it was rude. The two things can be true, Wilton.
Man,
it was logical, but it was still rude.
You was like, really, Wilton?
Because it was rude. It was still rude.
Football is football.
All right, well, Wilton went undefeated last week, so y'all know what that means for your teams this week. Ooh, Magic City Classic. He has Alabama State University winning it this year. It's spicy. The Bulldogs going to be barking in the comments when they see that. He has FAMU getting a bounce-back win this week over a Southern. Ooh, that's a bold pick. Obviously, he has Jackson State beating Bethune-Cookman. Sorry, Bethune, but that's just the story of your season. He has North Carolina Central University getting a win over Morgan State, and he has South Carolina State University being the next person up to beat Delaware State. I like these picks. A couple of bold takes. Very bold take of FAMU, bold. Any pick that you pick for the Magic City Classic was going to be bold. You know what I'm saying? Both teams are playing well right now. But that FAMU one, I'm going to keep my eye on that.
Yeah. No, FAMU really needs to get this win. I mean, obviously, if Southern wins, it'll be great, but FAMU needs to get this win. And I was saying this on another show. I just can't envision FAMU losing back-to-back games, number one. And then number two, I cannot envision them losing at Bragg. If this game was at A.W. Mumford, they may lose that game, honestly. And I know that sounds like, well, what difference does it make in terms of being at home or being on the road? In those two environments, whether if it was FAMU on the road or being at home at Bragg, it makes a big difference.
We're going to see. You went undefeated last week, so we're going to see what's up this week. But that was another great edition of HBCU Friday Night right here on HBCU Game Day. For Wilton Jackson, I am Symone Stanley, and we'll see you guys week 10.